If your brand is not doing micro influencer marketing, it definitely should be. I'll give you 5 creative strategies how to do it. And of course, we'll talk about the big mistake you need to avoid with influencer marketing. I'm Aaron Jack. This is Influencer Marketing Tips. Let's get started. First, let's talk about this huge mistake that I see brands make time and time again. They assume they have to go big. So they pursue someone with 500K, a million followers. They spend all their budget on one person and then it completely flops. Maybe they get views, but they don't get sales. Maybe the piece of content underperforms. Maybe the audience is off. There's a lot of ways it can go wrong. So this happens maybe once, maybe twice. And then as a brand, you kind of give up on influencer marketing. You think it doesn't work, but it turns out that 30% of brands are using it as a primary traffic source. That is 40% of their budget or more is being allocated to it. So in fact, it does work if you figure out how to do it correctly. So comparing influencer marketing to ads, which is probably the closest parallel. With ads, you don't start a campaign with a high budget. You don't just start spending $1,000 a day on something that you're not sure is going to work. You have new creatives, you have new targeting. You don't know if you're going to get the returns, the ideal cost per impression. So why would you do it with influencers? On top of that, you got to think about the risk profile. So with a larger influencer, to break even, you have to get a certain amount of views, certain amount of sales, and that threshold is going to be quite high. With a micro influencer, obviously it's lower. However, especially on platforms like YouTube and TikTok, that content can still go viral. You basically have an upside positive risk instead of a negative downside risk. So if you find sort of a growing diamond in the rough creator and they're producing viral content, even if they don't have that many followers, that is really going to be an insanely good strategy. When you take a look at the averages too, the engagement rate on all platforms for smaller micro influencers, let's say 0 to 50K, is 3 to 5 times higher on average than the larger influencers. Now, why is this important? Well, number one, generally your compensation is going to be based around follower count. And if those followers are not engaging, that is commenting, liking on the content, then they're probably not resonating with it. So if you just think per dollar spent, and on Instagram, for example, that difference is a 2% average for mega influencers versus a 6% average for micro. And the TikTok averages are even more of a difference. So if you think about it in terms of dollars spent, 5 micro influencers at a 6% engagement rate is just going to get you more quality traffic versus a mega influencer with a 2%, for example. Now, if you take that up to 10 micro influencers, this also lets you do what is called the experiment and scale strategy. Of course, with smaller influencers, your content can still flop, but the more you diversify, the less that's going to hurt. And as mentioned, if you do 10, there's a higher chance you're going to get the opposite effect, which is super good results from someone who maybe doesn't have that much followers. So this discovery process, again, like ads, is trying as many things as possible, seeing what works, and then doubling down on it. Now, it goes without saying, you're going to pay less per person if you go smaller influencers, and this just opens up more compensation options. For example, you can only send products. You can give affiliate codes to people who already have your products, and you can do even more creative things that we'll talk about more. For a small and medium brand, this is quite important, especially when you consider the delta between your product cost and what that's worth to a consumer. Purely using gifted products, even if they're clearance products, excess inventory, for compensation can be a very economical way if you're keeping a close eye on your return on marketing budget. These prices are also driven down through lack of competition, which has another externality that is interesting. Big influencers getting inundated with sponsor requests every single day. They're going to take a lot of those requests, and a lot of the times, every post, every other post is going to have sponsored content. What this means is more noise and less credibility for each brand. Followers know that influencers do sponsored posts all the time. And if you're seeing one from Logan Paul every single day, then you're not going to believe he actually loves that product. It's the opposite case with smaller influencers. Even if they've done a few other sponsored posts before, most of their content is generally going to be more authentic because they're still focused more on growth and not monetizing. And that is just only to your benefit as the brand. Now, finally, before we talk about the strategies, the last thing you get is just more content when you're working with more people. Now, maybe it's obvious, but if you're doing UGC campaigns, you need videos for ads, especially if you don't have an in-house content team. Repurposing this content is extremely valuable and effective, especially if you're setting up your contracts with influencers correctly. And after the post, you have quantitative data for how good that content is. So if you're running ads, for example, it's like a way of testing your ads before you even spend a single dollar on them, even though, yeah, you probably did send some compensation for that post. Okay, here are the creative micro-influencer strategies, here's where it gets good. Because where do you find people? That is the hard part, right? So option number one is to use your current customers and traffic. You probably have an email list. These are people who already have your products. And even if they have a very small following, offering them something like an affiliate code, even if each one gets you just a few sales, that can be absolutely huge. Some of those followers too will be actual influencers who, if they like your product enough, maybe they'll do a post or two for free without you sending anything. So your upside is 100% with this strategy. And the other thing you can do is have a link on your website for affiliates to sign up. Again, these are going to be people who love your brand. Maybe they're already customers, maybe not, but it's just a great way to get highly interested inbound people that you can kind of filter through and see who looks good. Great strategy if you have medium to high traffic on your website. The next thing you can do is create some gamification or different tiers for influencer performance. Of course, you don't want to send out an offer that's too high or too low, but one way to squeeze the budget a little bit is to have, let's say, affiliate sales milestones, which can motivate and encourage influencers and affiliates to sell as much as possible. And then maybe they will unlock a higher tier commission. Maybe they'll get some free products. And overall, the initial offer seems more compelling. And then if they accept it, they'll have that additional motivation to create sales for you. Now, the important part here is to be on top of your analytics and have a platform that does this. Speaking of platforms, that is probably the best way to discover people, because unfortunately the search feature on these platforms are pretty limited for brands. You really want to be getting things like keywords, contact emails, and similar, because frankly, this is the reason most people don't do more micro-influencer marketing. They just think it's way too time consuming to find people and then reach out to them and also validate they're going to be good. So here, of course, I have to mention our platform partner up. This is exactly what we help brands do, is source, manage, and automate their influencer process. And we've specifically built this for small to medium brands, and it works uniquely well for micro influencers. So you can check it out. The link is below if you're interested. What a platform like ours or a similar platform could do is allow you to discover some of those hidden gems. That is, people with a super high recent growth rate who maybe don't have a ton of followers yet. That means those followers are active. You can also identify things like fake followers, which you can buy on Instagram, and that can be pretty devastating if someone has a high fake follower count and you're paying full price. Okay, next tip is the micro brand account strategy. Now, this one's a little bit more advanced, but if you can build a good network of affiliates, what you can do is go to them and propose the following: for them to create a account under your brand name on TikTok. Now, this won't be the official account or anything like that, but it's going to kind of look like that from the outside. Basically, they'll create a lot of content with your products, and that will generate traffic and sales for you. So it's kind of like an outsourced marketing agency. And if you do this with a lot of people, some of them can be very, very good. Recently, this is the way a lot of digital product sellers have scaled. They've created basically an affiliate network of content creators who are just blasting out content, maybe one post a day. Usually they're going to be younger people with time who want to make money on the side. And imagine having 10 of these people. You can get so much content and it can go extremely well, because if only one post per week goes viral, that's a lot of traffic. Okay, the final strategy: doing micro influencer campaigns around product launches or sales. Maybe more obvious than the other ones, but if you have excess inventory or you really want to get the word out and create some hype around a new launch, this is a great thing to do, because even if your current customers see some of this content, that'll push them back to your website, especially if you send it in conjunction with an email announcement. So if there's a certain time where you need a traffic surge, you can do a special influencer marketing campaign, maybe send out some of those excess products just to create some cyclical hype and really push your traffic for a limited time. With this strategy, you might want to consider setting a deadline and a specific quantity of content. For example, we want a post within the next week for $50. Timeline's really important, and then you can just launch everything at the same time. In summary, I hope this convinced you just a little bit. And again, I'll say the hard part is finding people and scaling it. So a platform can be a great solution for that, similar to our platform partner up. I hope you got some value out of this video. And if you're interested in doing more influencer marketing more effectively, consider subscribing. See you in the next video.